I couldn't help but notice that your presence here, the rhetoric, the tone was much softer than what Radu had initially said. Is there any sort of thing that changed? I mean, that there was no sort of discussion about misrepresenting the history.
The museum's role in this particular event was to make certain that the accurate historical context of the request was available to the council member so that it could be a part of the deliberations of the council in making this decision.
What was your point, though, just so I'm clear? Obviously, you were saying you were neutral on recognizing Pesha, but you seem to want to make it very clear to the council that he was not.
What I said was that the museum does not have a position
Right.
on the bill at hand. The museum's position is, and this is what Councilman Mendelson asked of us, the museum's position is to make sure that the history of the period is accurately represented. And we do this if the Justice Department asks us, that's one of the reasons we are a public institution, so that we can provide accurate information about the era of the Holocaust.
Accurate and unbiased. I think it's unbiased as well. I think it's just here are the facts.
Yeah. And well, that we're involved. I mean, accurate implies unbiased, I hope. But yeah, but that is that's my purpose in being here. And that's.
The modern state of Bulgaria has failed to apologize for its role in the deportation of the, in these occupied territories of the Jews. And the best, the furthest their declaration could go is, we regret not being able to save them on the account that they were not Bulgarian citizens. There are some explanations. Do you believe that, in this, with this requested renaming, do you believe that this should be prerequisite before an honorary title is?
I can't comment on what should be done today on this issue, at least not at this place and time. But I will state the facts that, as I stated them in the hearing, that the Germans did come after the Wannsee Conference to each of their Axis allies. This was the reason that the Foreign Office official, Martin Luther, no relation to the Martin Luther, this is the reason why Martin Luther was at the Wannsee Conference, because he was going to be responsible for instructing diplomats in the Axis countries and in the neutral countries to try to work out a deal whereby these countries would give up their Jews for a German final, so-called final solution to the Jewish question. When the Germans came calling in Bulgaria, the Bulgarians said yes, they would agree to do it. And they took the necessary steps to start this up. And the plans were, in a series of phases, to deport the Bulgarian Jews first from the provinces, which was not unusual. This is how it happened in Hungary after the Germans occupied in 1944, and eventually in Sofia. And it is at this point, after the deportation of the Jews from those territories occupied by Bulgaria, that Mr. Peshev intervened. And that intervention was decisive in that it stopped the momentum of the deportation operation, which the government was deeply implicated and very far along.
But it also fails to apologize for this, fails to account for this. There are even some angry comments from the current Bulgarian leadership against the Republic of Macedonia simply for producing a Holocaust movie, a movie which portrayed the Holocaust.
I'm only going to comment on the history here. You certainly are free to check with our public affairs office, and you can submit your questions there, and they'll pass them on to whoever is appropriate.
Does the museum still believe, as your colleague has indicated in a letter and has put into the public record, that the Bulgarian
I can't
embassy?
comment on the letter. I can comment.
But you're
on-
familiar
Nice
with,
meeting.
Nice meeting
you
you
must
too.
be familiar with what I'm referring to.
Yes, I am familiar. I have seen the letter.
Because that accused the embassy and the Bulgarian government of not accurately accounting for.
That I'm going to ask you to check with our public affairs office. The reason I am here is to present the facts as accurately and as completely as possible in order to assist the council in making its.
And do you think the
deliberation.
facts were correctly presented at this hearing?
I think, given the time limits that were available, and the parameters of Councilman Mendelssohn's questions, I think there was a reasonable representation of the facts of the Holocaust. Naturally, I could have lectured, you could have lectured.
Hey, listen, I take that as a compliment.
For much longer, we could have debated some points as well. But I think for the purposes of this hearing, which was to determine the facts and impact of Peshev, the person in his position, on the fate of the Bulgarian Jews, that was well covered during the hearing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Peter, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
I'm going to call you.